Aloha and welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. I'm your adventure guide, Bear Woznick, coming to you from beautiful Waikiki Beach. We're right on the beach here in Waikiki, right next to St. Augustine's by the Sea Catholic Church. In fact, our studio's directly above where the Eucharist is. So welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We have as our guest today, emergency room doctor Scott French. That takes care of a lot more than just medical emergencies. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Kickstart that engine and roll thunder with the pack. Explore the grittiness of manly spirituality. Gain traction in the virtues. Soup up your spiritual engine by turning adversity into adventure. Now here's Bear Woznick. Let's ride.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. I'm your host, Bear Woznick. There's a story of Jesus on the night of his passion before he was to be crucified. He stood before Pontius Pilate, and Pontius Pilate asked him in a sarcastic way, "What is truth?" And you hear that kind of statement a lot these days. What is truth? Like as if you couldn't know the truth. But truth was standing right in front of him. Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, the life." Truth, the person of truth, was standing right in front of him. Truth, facts and truth, they can't be changed. Truth is truth. And we're fortunate to be Catholics because in the Catholic Church, we have this beautiful combination of philosophy and theology. We understand the personal anthropology, what it means to be a human being. We know that we're made in God's image. And we go back all the way to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. When you quote Augustine, he refers anyway to Neo-Plato type of philosophy. And Aquinas just refers to Aristotle as the philosopher. It's interesting that about 500 BC, there was this thing in Greece about reason and philosophy, which is, of course, the love of truth, the study of truth. And we have this great revelation of Scripture, from the Old Testament into the New Testament. And there's this synthesis, this combination of Athens and Jerusalem that brings us together to the point of understanding our faith. One of the saints called it faith seeking understanding. And so truth is under attack these days. But I think it was Augustine said that truth is a lion. It doesn't need to defend it. It doesn't. You don't need to defend it. Truth itself. Speak truth, and it'll defend itself. So we have with us today Dr. Scott French. He's an emergency room doctor. He's with the Father Spitzer's Magis Center. He teaches all over the world on the Shroud of Turin and Eucharistic miracles, and is now focused on the spiritual warfare, the element of spiritual warfare that focuses on truth. So I'm just going to ask Dr. Scott French an easy question. What is truth?
So thanks, Bear. Aloha. So back to John 18, as you quoted, that is really, that's where we are right now. This is spiritual warfare. It's actually a great time to be alive because there's this huge battle over truth. And yes, the other side has the people that are not of the truth have the media, they have the politicians, they have the people with money and all that. All we have is the creator of the known universe. I like the odds.
Yeah.
So we were born for a time like this, as it says in Esther. But if we don't stand up for the truth, God will raise somebody else up. That's the rest of Esther 4:14. And so we have to stand up. We're in this huge crisis right now, and we have to stand for the truth. And back to your point, so what was happening in John 18 was Pontius Pilate was interrogating Jesus to find out, why are you here? They say you're a king, and what does Jesus say back? Well, you say I'm a king. And so Pontius Pilate basically is asking him for, why are you here on planet Earth, right? And what does Jesus say? For this I came, and for this I was born, to solve poverty? No. To save the planet? No. To proclaim the truth, which is a
Mm.
spiritual work of mercy, right? Now, the corporal works of mercy are important, but our job is to get people to heaven. And so we can make everyone rich. That doesn't get them to heaven. So we need to fight poverty. We need to do the corporal works. But what we've lost is that spiritual sense. Our real home is in heaven. And so that's when he says uh, to claim the truth. And that's after that is when Pontius Pilate family says, "Quid est veritas?" What is truth? So, like you said, there is the truth in front of him. I'm the way, the truth, and life, as you said, and also in John 8. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Truth is
Right.
incredibly important. And then that's the birth of relativism. That's where we are today. But because, as you mentioned, we don't teach philosophy in our schools, that was the good side of COVID. We learned that our kids were being indoctrinated rather than to think, not teaching them how to think and critical thinking in particular, how to really evaluate things when people claim that they have the truth. So, it's a logical contradiction, but no one knows it because we don't study philosophy anymore. So
Hmm.
what the relativists are saying is that there's my truth and there's your truth, which means there is no absolute truth. So what they're saying is the only absolute truth is there no absolute truth, right? So it's a
Right, which is
logical,
a logical
right? It's a
contradiction. Right.
logical contradiction, but no one calls them on it because we don't understand. And the other thing you mentioned is that there are several kinds of truth. So our culture really is into scientific truth, but scientific truth is an iterative process, and we'll go through
Hmm.
that in a second. Whereas religious truth is binary. It's binary. There either is a God or there isn't. There
Mm.
either was a Jesus Christ or there wasn't. There either is a resurrection or there isn't. The Shroud of Turin is either the evidence of the resurrection or it isn't. But we conflate that with scientific truth. And I'll just give you some examples. We used to tell the truth in medicine, and unfortunately, all aspects of our culture have lost the truth. So we call killing babies reproductive health care. You know, we call terminating life with euthanasia compassionate care. We call transgender surgery,
Mutilation.
which mutilation, and these people have a 2,000% increase in suicides.
Right.
They're all infertile. They lose 10 to 15 years off their life, but this is gender affirming
And
care.
their hormones just get whacked.
Oh, yeah, they're a lifetime of hormone injections, and they get
And
rage.
you wonder why so many of the left's violence against the right is transgender. It's because
yeah.
they've just been messed up by
Their brains
people
have been jacked up, yeah.
affirming their dysphoria, and then the surgeries, and then all the drugs that they're taking. They're just and that's not medical care. That's not being compassionate.
But you see, what's happened is the medical field has been captured. No, the AMA doesn't say, wait, abortion isn't healthcare. Right? They've never come out and said. They haven't said that transgender is child abuse. Transgender surgery and all is child abuse. This country of Sweden, Denmark, United Kingdom, Finland. I think there's a fifth country. They've all banned transgender affirming care because it doesn't do anything to the 2,000% increase in suicides. And these people are tragically, disfigured for the rest of their life. But we're going ahead with it, whereas they've abandoned it in Europe. I mean,
We're gonna bring it. God's gonna bring it back. And you see a picture of a man and a woman. I saw this the other day. I think she had blue hair, not the most attractive woman in the world, and her beta male, if you can even call him that, husband. And they're so proud of their two transgender children that are less than 5 years old. I didn't even know how babies were made till I was in 6th or 7th grade. I mean, back in the day, my dad said, "Okay, son, we're going to go have a talk," and we sat by this beautiful creek, and I was like, "What?" I was in shock. And now people are just being it's just an all-out attack of the lies of sexuality. on you.
Well, but here's the thing. These people have been duped. Again, remember, spiritual battle, we're not fighting politicians and
Right.
people. We're fighting Satan. And that's what we have to keep focusing on that's in Ephesians, Ephesians 6, we're fighting powers and principalities. So these poor people have been manipulated. They've been bribed, and they're not aware. Just like the women that they're led down this path to have an abortion. Oh, it's good for you.
Until they see a scan of the baby, an ultrasound of the baby, and then 80 to 90% of those said, "I'm not going to kill that baby." We're talking with Dr. Scott French. Very rarely that we have a returning guest, but Scott's got an open mic here anytime he wants. We'll be right back with more of the Bear Woznick adventure. SchoolofManliness.com is a place for men of grit and grace to join together, to inspire, to encourage, and to challenge each other to grow in manly virtue. Members receive morning man meditations, a monthly curriculum that is rich with audio, video, and written content, and a trail guide to help you map out your new trajectory. Many of our members lead their sons through this same curriculum. Your membership gives you access to both the Man Cave, which is our non-Facebook type community, and the School of Manliness at schoolofmanliness.com. Become a member at schoolofmanliness.com. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick adventure possible. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? This is a talk you've got to have with yourself. Every man needs to know how to fight, to physically fight, to defend himself and his family. Every man should be trained in how to fight, how to wield a weapon, and he needs to be fit enough to do so, and he needs to be willing, sometimes be willing and able to do some unthinkable things, to the degree required to stop an assailant in order to protect himself and his family. There is this talk that you need to have with yourself. How far are you willing to go in a fight? You need to ponder what it would be like to hit someone in the throat or push your fingers 2 inches into someone's eye sockets. You need to think about it, feel it. You need to have a plan. You need to decide what circumstances it would take for you to go Viking and to go berserk on your assailant. And one more thing, every man has a duty to those he loves to be fit enough to outlast an opponent. My newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone?, has hit the top 5 in Christian books for a good reason. It's because men are searching for traction and a trail guide to live out the unique calling and the gifts that they were born with, that each man individually is factory loaded with by God. Paul said, "Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, do all things in love." Finally, here is a book that talks with men the way men talk with each other. Just plain old straight shooting. By the way, Mama Bears, this is your chance to get this message to your men. Go to schoolofmanliness.com or anywhere books are sold. 12 Rules for Manliness. Where have all the cowboys gone?
This is a warning. The Bear Woznick adventure is dangerous. The radical change Bear challenges you to is not for wimps. Change this station now to a soft rock station before it's too late. You've been warned. Now, here is Bear Woznick.
Aloha, welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. My book, 12 Rules for Manliness, is still a great selling book. It went as high as number 5 with Christian Books for Men. So it's legit, everybody. It's a pretty darn good book. It's written the way men sit on the back porch while the steaks are barbecuing and having a whiskey and a cigar. It's written the way men talk to men. And so it's just practical, common sense wisdom. And it quotes Louis L'Amour Westerns. It quotes the early church fathers. It quotes Aristotle. It's just a real journey for men. And it challenges them to the greatness God is calling them to. So 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? You can get it anywhere you want. Walk into Barnes & Noble or EWTN catalog or Amazon, or go to our website, schoolofmanliness.com. So we're counting on you, Mama Bears, to get that for the men in your family. And men, step up and get that book for you and for your son. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. You know, Scott, you were talking about the Book of Esther, which I love that book. It's so richly allegoric when Haman decides, you know what, I don't like Jews. So let's trick the emperor into killing all the Jews. And then Esther, this beautiful queen, I think Mordecai was her uncle, he says, you got to do something about this. Go in there and talk to him about this. Well, the queen doesn't just get to walk in to the king. She has to be invited. So her very stepping onto the threshold just outside that room where he was seated with a scepter in his hand, he could have said, kill her right there, because it's so inappropriate. But she made a stand. And then he invited her and he said, anything you want, anything you want, I will give you. And so she said, well, I made a banquet for you and for Haman, your prime minister. He said, really, that's so special? And Haman is so stoked because he's such a egotist. And Haman had already prepared gallows outside to hang Mordecai and others. And I think there were 10 gallows. And he comes into this dinner and the king is so amazed, and Haman is so into himself. And the king says again, what do you want? And I said, well, I beg you, all of my people are under a death penalty. And at that moment, Haman starts getting a little bit shaken up. And the king says, well, I'm going to give the Jewish people the right to defend themselves. I can't revert what I've said, but they can fight back. And Haman, here's what I think is so interesting about the woke culture, the cancel culture. Haman and his sons were hung on those gallows. And so this very woke cancel culture is now turning in on itself and canceling each other. It's like the cancel culture is kind of taking care of itself. They turn on themselves, I'm against this, and then all of a sudden Trump says I'm against it too. Oh no, I'm for that. They don't know what to do. So I feel like the cancel culture is going to hang itself on its own gallows. In essence.
And I agree. Again, it goes back to, this spiritual warfare. We're not fighting woke culture. We're fighting Satan's behind all this. And so we have to keep that in mind, and we have to put on the armor of God, right? As also it says in Ephesians 6. And so what we have to do is we have to remember that most people are doing whatever they're doing for, money, power, whatever. They don't realize they're being manipulated, and they haven't been exposed to the truth. So what our job is to expose people to the truth, right? And with love, we have to, but we have to stand, just like the parents
have to make the stand like Esther did.
You have to make a stand. You have to say, no, you're not going to abuse my child. No, you're not going to kill these innocent babies.
And yes, I'm going to run for the school board.
That's right. So you make a stand, but and in charity, and you hope that they convert. So God could do it on his own, but he wants us to participate in it. And that's what we're all called to, which is again why it's a wonderful time to be alive. And so going back to truth, what we're relying now is on scientific truth. Remember, there's a famous government doctor who claimed he was the truth, right? And it's nice to be infallible. I'm a doctor, but I don't consider myself.
Does this other doctor's name start with the same letter as yours?
Yeah, it does actually.
It starts with the letter F. Okay, I think I know what we're talking about.
So here's the thing: medicine can get to the truth, but it's an iterative process. And medicine,
we don't know what iterative means.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I'm going to explain to it. So iterative means it's a process. And so what happens with medicine is it's based on the scientific method. And what's the scientific method based on? It's based on a hypothesis. So I come up with a hypothesis. Then I design an experiment, and then I observe the results of that experiment. So right there, then you're putting in human action, right? Observe, right? So if I get $50 million grant to prove that oil of newt cures cancer, I might be inclined to say, hey, yeah, my study results were positive, right?
Right,
And
right.
and so, but again, just to give some practical examples, I'll just give some practical examples. So when I went to medical school, I say back in the dark ages, because prior to March 2020, we used to believe and debate over treatments and stuff, because every treatment, every vaccine or whatever we use has a risk and a benefit. And if the risk is greater than the benefit, then you don't do it. But after March 2020, because we had an infallible doctor in charge of the government, then we just went with whatever he said was truth. And again, that is really a sad state for medicine to be in, and hopefully in the near future we will recover from that. So, for example, in medical school, again, back in the dark ages, my professors said to me, and that's why I went into academics at first, is that 50% of what we call dogma today will be proven wrong. 50%.
And it's true. And since then, we've seen the flipping over of the nutritional pyramid.
Yeah,
it was exactly upside down. It was exactly upside down. Yeah.
And so I just give some common examples, like heart disease is a common example. So we thought it was due to clogging of the arteries, but we found out that actually, believe it or not, poor dentition can contribute to coronary artery disease, because that constant inflammation, that constant seeding of bacteria from your mouth, because you haven't brushed your teeth well, causes coronary artery disease. So there's lots of other causes of it. So that's just an example. So that's where, again, medical truth, scientific truth is about probability. And so we call it the 95% probability. But what people don't understand, and doctors aren't really often good at explaining to it. So let's say that this cancer cure has a 10% chance, you have a 10% chance of being cured. Okay, that doesn't mean that everyone who has this type of cancer is going to be 10% cured. No, what it means, out of 10 people, one person will be cured. And so that's what's going on with our medical right now. We don't really explain that it's about probability. Do you want a 1 out of 10 chance?
And we saw
100, a 1 out of 1,000 chance. What are your chances? So,
there's
again, for you as an individual, that's what we have to understand with probability. For you as an individual, even if it's 1 out of 1,000, that means 999 won't get it, but you will. So it's for you as an individual, it's 0 or 100%, right? You either get cured or you don't.
You're right. So
that's what's important for people to understand.
Yeah, and during that time, we had these professors specifically from Stanford. I know of some of them were saying, no, we're finding these different results. And then the social media shut them down and said, but we believe in science. And of course, the scientific method is, if I'm not mistaken, was invented, I believe, by a Catholic.
Yeah, Dr. Bhattacharya and I were working on a couple of these cases, because again, the truth always comes out, and it turned out that they weren't right. Like, kids were not dying of COVID unless they had.
But you got to wear a mask, as Fauci said, even though they knew it, even though it doesn't work. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. I think what it is too is this, as you were saying, when I was a kid, once a year, The Wizard of Oz would come on TV. And it was about the time when color TVs came out. That's how long ago I was watching this show. And it freaked me out, especially when the flying monkeys showed up, But there was this moment when that they're going to meet the Wizard of Oz. And it's so scary. There's clouds and smoke, and it's a big booming voice. And I think Toto then kind of goes around the corner and he tugs on this curtain. And then you see the actual wizard using all these controls and again, trying to show how big and scary he is. That's what's happening. The curtain is being pulled back on the woke culture and on Satan. People people, I think now more than ever, especially in this last month or so since we've had this terrible attack on Charlie Kirk, we're seeing Satan manipulating all these things behind the scenes. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. He's from the Magis Center, and we'll be right back to talk more about Quid Est Veritas, what is truth, and the spiritual warfare we're facing today. This is the Bear Woznick Adventure. Go to schoolofmanliness.com and subscribe to our weekly email to receive video YouTube links of the Bear Woznick radio show, as well as the Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy TV show, which, by the way, is filmed in the tropics, as well as our manly evangelistic YouTube shorts. Go to schoolofmanliness.com. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? We live in a crossfire hurricane, for our struggle is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in heavenly places. Men must come to grips with the fact that we were born into the midst of the crossfire of a spiritual battlefield. The battle rages on, and so many men do not even realize that they are in a fight to the death. They seem like little children wandering through the streets of Beirut in the middle of a war fight. They're in a battle and they don't even know it. Wake up, stand up, and fight. Fight the good fight. And you wage that war by love, by self-donation, and by prayer. People love our EWTN TV show, Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick. Thanks to you, the show has won 4 different Tally Awards. And now, instead of waiting each week for the next episode to air, you can actually binge watch our show and even share it with your friends when you go to deepadventure.com and join the Mama Bears or the Man Cave. Along with all the other benefits, you get total access to all the seasons of our aired episodes, plus instant access to episodes that won't even air for several months. Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick, a great way to communicate the gospel in a gritty enough way that even tough men will stop and watch at deepadventure.com.
Be the kind of man that when he gets out of bed in the morning, the devil says, "Oh no, he's up." Go to deepadventure.com and invite Bear to speak.
Aloha, welcome to the Bear Woznick Adventure. I want to invite the men to go to schoolofmanliness.com and join the Man Cave. The Man Cave is a non-Facebook community of men. We share there every day what's going on in our lives, what challenges we challenge and also embolden each other. Once a month, we have a Zoom meetup call where we all get together and we're going through my book, 12 Rules for Manliness. Every Saturday morning, you get early in the morning, like before your kids are up, like 4 a.m, you're going to get sent to you 4 o'clock Eastern time that week's curriculum in the School of Manliness. It might be a video of one of my motorcycle shows, or an audio homily from Father Bryce Lundgren, or many different things, or written content, or perhaps a self-assessment. But in the morning, you get to have that 2 cups of coffee and just spend time with God and focus on your identity as a man. And it's a great thing to take your sons through. They actually can have their own login, not to the Man Cave, because that's just for adults, but they can get a login to the School of Manliness, and you can lead them through it. Very powerful. And then also, every morning, you get 1 or 2 sentences from the Catechism as we take you all the way through the Catechism. So every morning, you get that kind of wake-up reflection from the Catechism, and we go sentence by sentence. So schoolofmanliness.com, come and join. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. He's one of our most returning guests on our show. We're talking about truth, and more than that, we're talking about the spiritual warfare involved. You know, Scott, Jesus said, "Don't think that I came to bring peace. I came to bring a sword. I came to bring fire." Satan. The angels thought, you know, I can I don't need God. I can do my own thing. I don't need God for anything. I can be God. And so a third of them were thrown down to earth and became their turf.
Yeah.
Then Jesus invaded. And he kind of shook things up, especially because he took on his humanity. And so he then empowers us to say, this is your turf now. And I remember, Scott, 3 days before the last election, I was walking in front of the Catholic Church, which is right next door on the beach here. And I just had this sense. I said, Cindy, something's going on. And she said, what? I said, I can feel a battle going on, raging right above me. And I didn't mean just above me, but I meant in the heavenlies, around the earth. There's a big battle raging right now, and we need to pray. And the battle, to a great degree, a great victory was won that November for truth. But we have our turf here now too. Satan was thrown down. Jesus invaded. It's our turf, and we're supposed to protect our turf. And to some degree, God's not going to come help us because he respects us unless we ask him in. So spiritual prayer and spiritual warfare is a huge part of it. So run with that.
Yeah. So it definitely is, like we keep saying, we're not fighting people, we're fighting Satan. Satan's behind all this. Most people don't realize they're working for him that are. They don't realize. And it goes back to Adam and Eve. It goes back to Genesis 3. Again, if you really look at the fall, it was, I want to be God without God, right? And that's what the transgender movement, all these things are, again, inspired by Satan. Same thing that, with my body, it's just that's Satan saying, because Satan's very upset that we're ensouled bodies. And so what the other factor about this this religious warfare, this spiritual battle over truth, is because Satan has, he has his church too, so it's spiritual. Yeah, so it's his beliefs. And again, people don't realize they're working for him. The other thing that you really think about,
I think some of them do.
Well, some of them,
and at the very least, we know many of them hate God.
Yeah.
There's an angst there. So many of them, I think, actually, they may not know they're working for Satan, but they certainly have an angst against God.
That's also because again, we don't hear the truth in the media.
Mm-hmm.
The word out there, and this is what I learned, going out to the high schools and colleges.
Really?
And
okay.
Grade school is that what the word out there is, science has disproven that God exists. Science has disproven that you have a soul, and in fact, it's just the opposite. And again, science.
Spitzer's books are awesome.
Can't prove anything, but probability. When you go through the Shroud of Turin, all the we don't have time to go through all.
And Spitzer's book on near-death experience, or what do they call it, near-death experience?
Near-death experience.
It's irrefutable.
The Eucharistic miracles. God is trying to help us. He's trying to show, what God is trying to show is that we are ensouled bodies, because that's spiritual warfare. This Gnosticism, the body is bad and the soul is good. Environmentalism, right? Get rid of people because we're harming the body.
I like the way you say that. We're not body and soul. We're one. Composite. The body and soul. Yeah, exactly.
We're ensouled bodies, body-soul composite, basically.
Right.
And so this has been going on. John's gospel is writing against the Gnostics, which again, they believe that the body was bad. So the same thing, but look at that transgender. They're saying the body is bad. No, your spirit can decide. Your spirit's good. It can decide you're male. Right. It's not, again, this comes from Satan. And so we have to remember. But it's also, I want to emphasize, and this is what resonates with the kids, because they're the ones most affected by this, is it's anti-human, right? Because we're ensouled bodies. And that's what Satan's upset about, is that, and we cooperate with procreation, right? We don't create. God, the soul, and again, medical evidence with near-death experiences, terminal lucidity, shows that it looks like you have an immortal soul, and it goes to one of two destinations.
Have you seen those videos? I'm wondering if you concur with them, where they're actually filming the moment of impregnation, and the moment the sperm hits the egg, there's this flash that takes place.
Well,
Do you think
here's the
that's
thing about it.
yeah.
I'm not sure science can see, science can't see a immaterial. So there's the material world.
Right.
God created both, right? God created the material world and created the immaterial world. It may turn out that's true, but we don't know. What we do know is with near-death experiences in terminal lucidity, people who are born blind, this is probably the best
Yes.
one.
I
People
love
that
it.
are
Yeah.
born blind when they're clinically dead, when their heart, their heart's not working, their brain's not working. If you did an EEG, be flatline. People that are blind from birth see from the first time, so they have no neurons in their brain that have visual information. They see while they're dead, right? They hover above their body. There's thousands of these stories
Well, I love the
across.
story that Father Spitzer talks about the red shoe on the roof.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
was that about? Can you share with us
Well,
that?
yeah. There was a woman that had there's a woman who was not blind from birth that floated outside her body when she was clinically dead, which means again their brain's not working, and she
The
sees
organ of their brain is not working, but the mind of the soul
right. Well,
is.
again, remember the brain comes from the material world, the soul does not, and the mind is more than the brain. That's really what's going on. So in this one case, this gentleman who's blind from birth, has no visual neurons, he floats outside his body, sees his body for the first time. Of course, he's never seen it. Of course, after he comes back, they have to
Because he's
explain
blind.
he's never
Oh.
seen his body because he's blind from birth. He floats outside the body, floats outside the hospital, sees a train with the sign saying where it's going, sees the train tracks, seeing the snow falling. And then he comes back and he's resuscitated. He tells them that. They go, yeah, right. Well, sure enough, these doctors and nurses are the ones witnessing that. And they report, oh my goodness, yes, that really happened. So how do you explain that? It's great news. It means that your mind is more than your brain. There's clearly a brain-mind interaction. But our minds which is again, the soul is two things: the life-giving principle and our mind and our intellect and will. And we're in soul bodies, and that's what Satan's not happy about: is that we get to cooperate with God in
And
procreation.
and we have something.
Child never to be repeated, and that's what we've lost because we've lost the spiritual sense. We're so smart. Our knuckle-dragging ancestors understood it for thousands of years. They would bury their dead knowing they had an afterlife. But no, we're so smart now. But in fact, the evidence is just the opposite. Our culture does a great job of suppressing the
Well,
truth.
you have to be really smart to be an atheist. It used to be you had to be, because every even the most remote tribe in the world has that religious sense about them. It's not like it was taught to them by their parents and handed down. Here's isolated cultures everywhere. But if you get really smart, you can talk God out of existence in your life. Or the other thing is, what's happening is when you're given over to sin, you're given over to a reprobate conscience, and that still small voice of God gets silenced in your heart.
You get a darkened intellect when you go with
yeah,
sin.
and so we're more than, the soul is a life-giving force, but we have a spiritual, rational soul. Someone told me once, well, my cat has a soul. When that cat looks in the mirror, it sees itself, and it knows that's me. But the difference is that cat isn't aware that it's aware. There's a big
Correct.
difference. It's not aware that it's aware of itself. And so we have a spiritual, rational soul. We are made in the image of God. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. When we get back, we'll be talking more about spiritual warfare and truth. Deep Adventure Ministries is grateful to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for underwriting the Bear Woznick adventure on EWTN. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union provides car loans, mortgages, SBA loans, and depository accounts nationwide, as well as 24-hour support. Go to deepadventure.com to find their link, or go to NotreDameFCU.com. Mahalo to Notre Dame Federal Credit Union for making the Bear Woznick adventure possible. Here is a YouTube video short, which is based on an excerpt from my newest book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? Quo Vadis. There is a tradition, a story about St. Peter when the great persecution came to Rome, and he fled to the south along the Appian Way. He was met by a man, Jesus Christ. Jesus stood and asked Peter, Quo Vadis, where are you going? And Peter asked him, my Lord, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to Rome to be crucified again. Peter turned in his tracks and went back to Rome, where he met his death. And do you know his bones are still there on that same hillside where he died, beneath an altar in a church called St. Peter's Basilica? Will you walk with Jesus along the way to carry your cross? Most of his followers abandoned him on that day on Calvary. Did he not say to his brotherhood of men, as the Father has sent me, so I send you? Did he not teach them to pray that same dangerous prayer, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven? Announcing Spirit Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. So many people, especially you mama bears, tell us we want more of Bear and Cindy together. Well, we're happy to announce our website, spiritofadventuretv.com, as well as our YouTube channel, Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure, where you can watch Spirit of Adventure TV with Bear and Cindy. Join us where we live in the Hawaiian Islands or where we sail our boat, the Spirit of Adventure, in the Caribbean. Experience both adventure and serenity with us as we share our life together, as well as the joy and the wisdom of our faith. Go to spiritofadventuretv.com to find out more and subscribe on YouTube to Bear Woznick Spirit of Adventure. And join us, Spirit of Adventure with Bear and Cindy.
Are you still listening? I thought we warned you to change to an easy listening station. Well, you asked for it. Here is more of the Bear Woznick Adventure.
Aloha, welcome back to the Bear Woznick Adventure. We want to let everybody know, Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick, our 33-episode, 4-season-long motorcycle-based adventure TV show. It appears on EWTN still from time to time, but if you want to power watch it, you can watch it on Prime Video. On the last season, I think we had 10 or 11 episodes all shot right here in Hawaii, so it's pretty cool stuff, and it's life-changing. If you got a tough guy in the house, get them to watch the show. They won't even know it's about Jesus in the Catholic Church for a while, and we have so many tough guys that have become converts because of that show. So Long Ride Home. You have to say Long Ride Home with Bear Woznick because there's other titles on Prime that start with those words. We're talking with Dr. Scott French and the spiritual battle for truth.
And again, it's an anti-human. It's an anti-human battle too. This spiritual battle over truth is also an anti-human battle because again.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about AI and transhumanism.
Right. So again, our minds are more than our brain. Okay. Right. So the brain, it has an interaction with the mind. So the creator is always greater than the created. So while AI can do lots of tricks and everything, it's not self-aware, right? It doesn't do what we can do. So the example I give is, computers, it's yes, no, and everything is written on a program, and it can seem like it's thinking, but it's really not. It's really good at yes, no. It's deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is something that and novel idea, abstract ideas, and relating abstract. So let's give you an example here. So Mr. and Mrs. Grok at one point were sitting by a hillside. They saw a rock rolling down the hill, and they said, you know what? We could then make that into a wheel and use it for transportation. Computer could never do that because that's reasoning. That's taking an abstract concept, a rock, right? Thinking it could be something different, perfectly round, a wheel, right? And then thinking, oh, I can use that for transportation. You'd have to program that into the computer for it to put those things together.
And it goes back to the abstract way that we can think, even the fact that we have numbers and geometry. I think that's why Plato was into forms, because it's abstract. Yeah, the perfection of a triangle, a square, a perfect circle.
When I'm with a junior high group, I'll say, the number three is out there in outer space. That's why we know there's a number three. No, it's an intellectual concept that
Yeah.
we came up with. A computer can never come up with, hey, let's come up with the prime number. It's like it can only do what it was programmed to do. Uh,
Yeah.
so, so
It shows
the
the nature of the ability that God's given man. And
Exactly.
in that way we're
We
made in
have
God's image. We're not like a
we have
dog. A dog
rational
doesn't count.
minds.
Dog
We
doesn't
have-
count.
Right. Yeah, we have rational minds, Bear. And that's why we can discern like for example, the galaxies, the 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 material world was created by God as well as the immaterial world. And so like for example, the Milky Way, those spiral galaxies has the same mathematical formula as a snail shell. So again,
Isn't that awesome?
yeah,
What's that saying? The Fugazi? What is that one? That mathematical formula? I think, is it the Fugazi principle that
Yes.
I'm not saying it. Am I saying it right? Am I that smart? I doubt it. But, and God's given us not just a rational soul, but a spiritual rational soul. The Catechism tells us that's the part of us that can commune with God, because God is a spirit.
The real danger with AI is we don't use our rational mind. So we don't live in a rational world right now where a man can become a woman can become a man. So that's irrational thought. That's why these people have increased suicide. I mean, it causes anxiety, depression. So look what's happening to our children. So we have to let them know there is truth, right? And we have rational minds to understand. Just by coincidence, we can solve the equations.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that's the reason why so many young men are coming into the church? Because young men are made in this, this mathematical element that men have to them that wants order. It's not so much about feelings, but order. And when you come into the church, first, just the anthropology of who you are in Christ, and then the logical, reasonable teachings of the church. Once you define certain truths like God exists, He's one in being, three, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Jesus is God incarnate. You're made in His image. Everything just starts to flow in. There's an order that then begins to proceed from those truths.
It's logical. It's logical. Like what I say is.
But it orders your life. It begins to order your thinking, your life, the way you approach.
Right. We've done this great experiment, and it's had wonderful results. We took God out of school, right? We allowed Satan in, and guess what? Our children are committing suicide. They're depressed. They're lonely. It's been great. I mean, it's been wonderful. Part of the reason it's men more than women really has to do with who Satan really hates is women, right? Because he remembers the woman's seed will crush your head. And so the feminist movement has really, really, really harmed both men and
really
women.
really harmed women.
Really harmed. And so a lot of these, they just, oh gosh, if a man says it can't be right. I mean, it just, again, that's all from Satan. This feminist thing has really become a anti-human, and which is anti-woman.
That's the abortion. Jesus said these words. Here's what the feminist movement taught women to say. This is my body. I will do with it what I want. But Jesus said, this is my body, which will be given up for you.
Right.
Abortion is the sacrament of Satan. But it's a selfish versus a self-giving statement. This is my body. I'll do what I want. And Jesus says, this is my body, which will be given up for you. But again, these
people are being duped because they don't understand. They're not being told the truth. And our public school system, again, it's mainly, it's through the public school. Who's the educator in the public schools? Planned Parenthood. And so they give this false notion that it frees you. See, right? Freedom from rather than freedom to worship God rather than freedom from restrictions, right?
Yeah.
So freedom from that's the problem. Again, we've been doing this experiment for 60 years. The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? That's what's happened. We got a reverse course, and I think what's happening is Gen Z in particular is starting to realize, because they've been the benefit of all this horrific stuff. Right?
You know what? What's one of the coolest things, Scott, is one of the coolest things a man can do is have the courage to ask a girl out on a date and then date her for a year and ask her to marry him and then get married. But men don't have to do that anymore. So many women have just been lied to so much that they flaunt their sexuality. There's no woman to conquer in a sense of wooing her and earning her. Women flaunt their sexuality so much. When Humanae Vitae was written, and everyone said, he's old fashioned, and written about contraceptive. As the years went by, I recently got the statistics, but I forget them. As soon as contraceptive care came out, the number of single mothers went through the roof. In other words, it didn't help. It just made people more promiscuous, and we have more and more single mothers. And what it did is women used to have a social contract with each other. I'm not going to have sex before I'm married. And that went out the door, and men then see women objectify women instead of seeing them as a subject of love. And I don't even need a girl because I can look at pornography. So that whole area, I think that's why young men are coming back and saying the one thing they can be is valiant and virtuous. And so I think they're coming back to that.
That's what Adam didn't do. He didn't say to Satan, leave my wife alone. But the other thing that's happened with single, again, what the fight against the family, spiritual fighting against the family, predicted with Fatima. Look at our prisons. Our prisons are full of fatherless men.
Yes, that's right. We're talking with Dr. Scott French. Scott, how can people find you? I neglected to say that if they want to invite you to come speak.
You can email me at scott@magiscenter.com, MAGIS center.com. That's Father Spitzer's site, scott@magiscenter.com.
And I know you've been doing a lot with the Archbishop, I guess, in San Francisco area, right? Speaking a lot there.
Archbishop Corleone, yes. He, after I gave the 2023 Eucharistic Congress, I gave one of the talks there. And then he asked me to go through all his parishes and schools to, proclaim
So get this man. Get this man, Dr. Scott French, out to your men's conferences. By the way, I'm speaking to a men's conference in San Francisco in the spring. So it's pretty cool. My old home turf. I was raised in Santa Cruz, but it's for the Archdiocese of San Francisco. We're talking about Dr. Scott French. Whew. We always it's always like we talk at 60 miles an hour and gust to 150 words a minute. But we got to go. Until next week, may the breath of the Holy Spirit aloha you. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Bear Woznick Adventure. Find more manly conversation at the Bear Woznick Deep Adventure YouTube channel. Subscribe and ring the bell.